Well, a very, very happy Wednesday, and welcome to another episode of the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin. Today is November 26th of 2025. Happy Thanksgiving Eve to all of those out there, whether you are at work, finishing up your last shifts, maybe you guys are getting ready for things, for working on Thanksgiving and this upcoming 4 day weekend. So I want to thank you guys for being out there and going to jobs because, someone got to keep this country up while other people stuff down turkeys and whatnot. It's never easy. I've gone through it myself. I've worked on Thanksgiving where it's a time where you feel like you're missing out. So whoever's working tomorrow, whoever's working all weekend long, thank you. I hope you guys have gotten some time to be able to celebrate and and give thanks to you, your family, your loved ones over this next couple of days. Whether you guys are getting your last minute stuff, I'm sure stores are packed right now. I can't do it. I will miss out on things. I went out to grocery stores early on, weeks in advance. I timed some things. I gotten some things 2 weeks ago. I gotten some things 3 weeks ago. I started Thanksgiving meal shopping on November 1st. And I just kind of went through there because I wanted to cross every T dot every I's when it came down to the food. So these stores, they've done a great job this season keeping things stocked up, keeping things available for everyone to have access to. Um, all I gotta say out there for those who are shopping, whether it's today, whether it's running out last second tomorrow, whether it's going out on Black Friday or this coming up weekend, be patient. Is there is an anxiety and confusion that comes along to doing getting these deals at stores this holiday season. It's very packed. People have a tendency of losing their way. Their kindness kind of goes out the window. The charitable like demeanor is non-existence. So whether you're on the road, whether you're at a grocery store, be patient, be kind. It's better to give than to receive. And I can't just emphasize that enough. No, my wife's planning going out Friday for a little bit. She has to get some stuff done. And I'm already praying for her because it's going to be a busy day, and I know what type of anxiety lurks her direction. She can't go into Costco without me half the time because how busy it is. So for those, just to help, think of someone else. Maybe they're not in that position because they want to be in that position, but because they have to, and it's not easier. You have short tempers around this time, and I get it. I'm for one guilty as charged at that point. So, um, I also want to give a shout out to those who are traveling this Thanksgiving weekend. If you haven't hit the road yet, maybe you're planning on doing it after work tonight, um, or whatnot. We people take the cars, they take buses, they take uh planes. Thank goodness with the government shutdown uh finishing up a couple weeks ago, people are able to travel freely and without issues. So plan ahead. Those are all things I consider, and I really emphasize. Like I said, I do feel sympathetic. I've been down those roads, and years to come, still maybe go down those roads. Where I will have to step aside and put some work in on a holiday like that on Thanksgiving. But you know, Thanksgiving is the notorious time of the year where everybody, all family members, friends, come from out, all around to get together, um, and just just celebrate each other's company and everything that has accomplished. Maybe things didn't quite go your way this year. Maybe things um You were given you were given something in life. This is kind of the time to reflect. Tomorrow is a big reflection. I want to, I'm going to think a lot about life this past year, where I've come from, where we've been, how it hasn't been easy, but how I've discovered new things and better opportunities. I've lost some people on the way this year that definitely I'm going to mourn about tomorrow. Just thinking about those things, but and I know friends and family that's lost their parents, and or that has lost someone in their life this year, and it is difficult because it's not the same. So wherever position you're at, overall, just know that from my show to you guys, I want to wish you guys a very, very happy Thanksgiving, a very safe weekend, and an enjoyable weekend. It's supposed to be cold out here in northern Kentucky this weekend. So, bundle up, maybe find some alternative things to do to keep yourself occupied. But I want to wish you guys a best holiday weekend coming up. Today is November 26th, 2025. On today's episode, I'm gonna get you guys ready for a weekend. We have a couple big Thanksgiving, big, coming up events and across college football, basketball, and the NBA and NFL. So we'll give you a rundown of the top games coming your way. Yesterday, I spoke about our major topic yesterday was about um, the free agencies and this kind of wish list that was put together. Well, we kind of went into conversation in depth, and for those who probably bypassed and said, "Look, Justin, I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but we were going through each and every free agency." I really did sit down last night and kind of went through who were available, and honestly, who could I see as a potential Cincinnati Reds. So instead of a full on website that I was on yesterday, I do have just a page of free agencies here from, sorted by position and with some stats. And I just entertaining the idea because Christmas is coming up. That letter to Santa for the Cincinnati Reds are coming up. We know, hey, we have no intention getting rid of Hunter Green, which is great. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But, with what we have in our rotation, on our 40-man roster, in our bullpen, on the field, you know, what type of inclusion, what type of free agents could we possibly include to kind of get us moving in the direction where we could put ourselves in a better position than we were last season. And last season was a winning season. It was a wild card season. And so we have something that we can improve on. And I don't want to be this Debbie Downer because I'm not saying that we have the Dodgers finances and we have endless of money that we could go out and get everyone that's on this list to better our team. No. But if we were to move some things around, if we could pick up, for me, I would be happy if I could pick up one or two items heading into this off season or heading into this next season that can help improve this team and kind of give the fans, the organization, some life heading into 2026 season. So we'll dive into that a little bit as well. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get right down to what's going on this weekend. It is a busy, busy weekend when it comes down to sports. We'll kick things off in college football as we have, only one game in college football for Thanksgiving. That is a 7:30 kickoff between Navy and Memphis. That's available on ESPN. Then on Black Friday, We have a handful of games as number 3 Georgia takes on number 23 Georgia Tech. That kickoff expects to happen at 3 p.m. on ABC. Following that game on ABC at 7:30, we have number 3 Texas A&M taking on number 16 Texas. And then to wrap things up on Black Friday in college football, we got the 9 p.m. number 25 Arizona taking on number 20 Arizona State, available on Fox. On Saturday, we have the high noon kickoff as the last game of the season will be taken on between number 1 Ohio State taking on versus number 15 Michigan. That is also available on Fox. We also have another high noon tip off between number 12 Miami taking on number 22 Pittsburgh. That's available for viewership on ABC. Then we have at 3:30 number 14 Vanderbilt taking on number 19 Tennessee, available on ESPN. Out here in Ohio, we have Kentucky taking on Louisville at high noon, available on the ACCN network. And then at 3:30, Cincinnati finishes off their regular season, taking on TCU on Fox. In NCAA basketball, tomorrow, Thanksgiving at 4:30, tip-off between number 16 North Carolina taking on the number 13 Michigan State. We'll have the number 4 Duke taking on number 22 Arkansas at 8 o'clock. On Black Friday, we will see Texas A&M CC take on Xavier, while Ohio State takes on Pittsburgh at 7 p.m. The Xavier game is at 5:30 p.m. NBA Thanksgiving action. We have a triple header looking forward to you ahead as we have Detroit taking on Boston at 5 o'clock, followed by a 7:30 tip-off between the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Oklahoma State Thunder. And to wrap things up, we have number 10, or at 10 p.m., we have Houston taking on Golden State Warriors. In the NFL, we have a really big weekend Thanksgiving triple header tomorrow. Kickoff begins at 1 o'clock between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. That will be available on Fox, followed by a CBS 4:30 matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Dallas Cowboys, concluding the Cincinnati Bengals and Baltimore Ravens for Thursday Night Football at 8:20 on NBC. On Friday, Amazon will have a showdown between the Chicago Bears and the Philadelphia Eagles. That kickoff is at 3 o'clock. Then we move to Sunday. On CBS, we have 1 o'clock kickoff between the Houston Texans taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers kick off at 4:25 on CBS. NBC 8:20 will be Sunday Night Football between the Denver Broncos and the Washington Commanders. We'll wrap up Week 13 of the NFL at 8:15 on ESPN on Monday, where the New York Giants takes on the New England Patriots. I know that was a lot to cover, and I appreciate everyone staying with me. I'm going through that list. I've only picked out not only local games here in this area, but I also picked out games that kind of come out our way. Biggest focus here are NCAA football final games of the season. So I know Ohio State on Saturday versus Michigan is going to be a big one. I know Miami and Pittsburgh, Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Those are our top 3 games coming into Saturday. You got the ranked Georgia and Georgia Tech, Texas A&M and Texas. I think those are going to be interesting games too. Arizona State, but nothing compared. A little bit of everything for you all weekend long. So excited to be a sports fan. Hey, look, and that's the other thing is if you're not following any of these teams, you're more local. Hey, I'm following the Kentucky, Louisville, Cincinnati. Want to help support them. Cincinnati has given us a good run this year. A lot of hype, a very encouraging season, especially moving forward. Kind of slipped away towards the end of the year, but basketball just kind of getting underway. So there's a lot. But hey, football is our big conversation. 3 matchups coming into tomorrow. We have the traditional. I call it traditional Packers and Lions. Okay. That kicks things off. And then you have the Chiefs and Cowboys, another traditional game. And then we'll see the Ravens and the Bengals. Now, I think all three of these games have interesting meaning in their own way. Remember, the Packers beat up on those Lions in week one. And I remember week one was a very, very clear conversation that a lot of people, from just how the results unfolded, was that the Packers were going to run away with the NFC North Division. The Lions were going to struggle, and that was it. And what we saw was, or what we have seen over the last, 12 weeks, is we're right where we want to be. And then, hey, look on the hindsight, because the Chicago Bears are right there. And now it's turned into be a very competitive division that I enjoy watching. And so that would be a very top tier game, kind of ease you in. If you have enough energy, you follow on over to the Chiefs and Cowboys game. Where listen, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs aren't out of it just yet, but the time is ticking. These two teams desperately need a win in order to give them some sort of boost heading into the final weeks of the season in hopes for a postseason opportunity. I believe that the Kansas City Chiefs have a little bit more willpower than the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have been able to surprise people throughout the regular season. It's when they get to the postseason, they seem to fail quite miserably. And then we finish off the night with the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. And we've had plenty of conversations about the season and how this division's unfolding. The biggest news coming out of this game Thursday night is going to be the matchup of quarterbacks. We have a banged up Lamar Jackson who's dealing with a toe injury, not a turf toe, just a toe injury. Okay. Joe Burrow is expected to return to the field since his turf toe surgery back in week 2. He's making an early appearance in order to give the Bengals the last and final hopes of possibly a playoff run. Right now, things don't look very well for the Bengals, and they need every win they can get. They are entering tomorrow's game 3-8. They have no more room to lose, and they really have no more room for errors. I don't know the status, of Trey Hendrickson. Maybe I'll learn that coming up in this upcoming segment. But offensively, we know, hopefully Joe Burrow is capable of doing a little bit more than what Joe Flacco's done. Joe Flacco has done a tremendous job carrying this team over the last month and a half. Things haven't gone his way. He only won one, but that's not totally to his fault. We've had a lot of issues with our defense, and we're just struggling offensively to keep up. Jamar Chase is returning from a suspension, so the hype is real. The intensity is going to be real, but we don't have any T. Higgins, so we're going to be at least missing this week without a T. Higgins coming from a concussion based off of last week's loss. So it's really going to be Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and possibly Chase Brown. And let's not forget, we got to get this offensive line to start blocking. And the defense that had a better performance last week still needs to carry on that performance and give their team a chance to win. Heading into this weekend, the matchups, you obviously got the Bears and Eagles. We're going to get an ideal look to see exactly how, the Bears are able, to stand against a top tier team in the NFC. Yes, the Bears are leading in the NFC North, but just like how a few weeks ago we put the Tampa Bay Buccaneers through a ring of tests competing against good teams that are well established in the NFC, we figured out where Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers needed to work on. The Bears aren't all the way there. That's given. But they have improved enough, and a win over the Eagles can do sorts of things if you could beat the Super Bowl champs. That the only thing that sucks about this game is on Amazon Plus, Amazon Prime, and I don't have Amazon Prime. I selected the CBS games here to pay attention to this weekend because you have the Colts right now, who are just dominating, and that was the only interesting morning game that I even came across. Buffalo and Pittsburgh, you're trying to figure out where the Steelers lie with or without Aaron Rodgers. And you also have a vulnerable Buffalo team that with both of them collide, it's a very equal matchup. And it's in Pittsburgh. Both of them also need to win. Pittsburgh needs to stay ahead of stay neck to neck with Baltimore. And Buffalo needs to get back into at least the wild card position. Denver and Washington Sunday night football game, and then the Giants and the Patriots. Another game that's on the list that I didn't mention, I think it's worth noting, is the Bears Chargers. That's going to be a division rival game coming up here this Sunday. So, if you're looking for a schedule, look, Thursday is nothing. I wake up tomorrow. I go wake up in the morning. I'm going to make a cup of coffee, get that turkey in the oven, make my sides. And I'm going to get up probably about 7 o'clock, 7:30, maybe even earlier, hopefully, to get going. I'm going to do a lot of prep tonight, right? But then I'm going to turn on the Macy Days parade in the morning, makes myself some breakfast, enjoy the parade. Then I got football on. And what sucks is that, football is going to occupy my channel, at least where one of my TVs, one of my monitors throughout the day. So I can just, it's football all day, and I'm not going to tune into Navy or Memphis. I'm not going to tune into maybe a little bit of basketball games, depending how I feel. I'll probably be beat by 10 o'clock, but as in no college basketball games, in my opinion. Maybe probably check into the North Carolina game later on as well. Alrighty. Last thing I wanted to mention is that the Cyclones are at it again tonight. A home game against Toledo on Thanksgiving Eve. Taking on Toledo Walleyes. It's a Thanksgiving Eve celebration. They will be on the road Friday against Kalamazoo Wings. And then they have a game on Saturday and Sunday against the Wheeling Nailers. So they're having a road trip for a couple weeks heading into that. That is our sports update coming up here heading into this early weekend. I wanted to provide for you. All right. So I talked to you guys yesterday in depth about the Cincinnati Reds, what they have, what they don't have, possibilities that I could see happening or I would like to see happening. And then I went over to the free agency list and kind of just went down the list with you about who's available, who could I see as a Cincinnati Reds, who would I like to see, and kind of ultimately create this wish list, this Santa's list for the Reds, because I want to see them make some sort of serious moves and decisions that, hey, we are going to grow from a team that went to the wild card last year and hopes to make it further this season that's ahead of us. And we're still very early on here in the off season, but things move quick during GMs and owners meetings that we could see some deals done. And we've already seen some trades done. It's going to, the back end of this free off season is going to circle the free agencies. Now, I don't know about you, but I would like to see the Bengals at least make a push. Now, I know that they can't have everybody on this list, but if they could at least capture 2, if not 3 guys, along with whatever else they can establish, I think that this would be a good decision. Now, in order to really take a look and understand what this list has to offer, we have to understand where the Reds sit at right now. Now, we've seen this 40-man roster kind of unfold and fill out, and we understand that some players have had to been moved to the bullpen category as they to fill out the rotation and whatnot. So I was looking at the roster here available, and I came to the conclusion. I like a strong five. If we just stuck with the players that we had now, my starting rotation would be consisted of guys like would be Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, Brady Singer, and Chase Burns. I like Chase Burns coming up midway last season. I don't know how much of a restriction he will have sliding into that fourth or even fifth spot of that rotation can really help him progress as well. Nick Lodolo, I brought him back over to the rotation. I like to see him down either in the 2 or 4 slot because he's a left-handed pitcher and matches Andrew Abbott in that category. Brady Singer was in this 3rd slot for me, and we're all building this off of Hunter Green. Now, back at the beginning of the offseason, there was kind of some speculations, maybe some talks, or even possibilities that Hunter Green could be in conversations to be dealt at some point this offseason. And a lot of that kind of seems to go wayside during the owners' meetings, where we kind of gotten some clarification from Nick Krall that they don't have any intention not only to move or deal Hunter Green, but to even touch anybody in the pitching rotation as we believe that we have a strong front of young, talented guys developing and growing from there. And I like the idea. Look, we do need that one guy that we could circle our rotation around. And Hunter, I don't feel like there's anyone else right now that is better than Hunter Green than to lead the right way. Andrew Abbott is still coming into his own. Nick Lodolo is finding his place. Brady Singer's not the guy. I don't think Chase Burns is the guy, at least not yet. And Brandon Williamson has a lot to work to do. So I like the fact that Hunter Green is, it has a secure spot right now on this organization. But let's talk reality, because if you looked at anybody on this list, if we were going to move anyone to get players because we know we need powerful batters, we need a good offense here. When you look at who we have to offer to give away, that top tier list isn't that great. As a matter of fact, Hunter Green's probably one of the 2 or 3 guys that we have. If not, he is probably the best guy that we have that we could possibly get something back. So I would honestly, I don't want to just sit back and just breathe and say that's it. I really want to kind of see how the first part of the season progresses, because if we're not in the postseason come July, if we're not contending, then maybe we have to make a move and we could get something back from a guy like Hunter Green and get a couple of younger talents that we could rebuild. If we are pushing and we are contending, I'd say Hunter Green's off limits. But that's also on the contrary note, because if Andrew Abbott, Chase Burns, Lodolo, Williamson, if they all make a push, then maybe we can still survive without a Hunter Green. It gets me almost nauseated and sickening to think that we would let Hunter Green move and depart from this organization. But this is also a player that deserves success. He's definitely earned it. He is someone, in my opinion, who should go out there and get paid and test that market. Unless the Reds are willing to sign him to an exclusive, outrageous deal, which I don't think they're willing to do to anybody on this roster, then it's for me, it becomes, well, how can we get our bang for our buck? Let's utilize this opportunity. And I hate the conversation probably as much as anyone else wants to hear it. But you get him healthy, you get him out here early on, You build up what he has to offer, and you put him on the market. You could always put him on the market and just see who bites and what they have to offer, and then say no. So I know that's going to be probably a conversation on and off heading into next season. That's just probably not going to sit right with a lot of Reds fans. I put the bullpen as with Tony Santillan as our closer. I think that I don't know if he should be our closer, but I feel like Terry Francona has a good, grasp on what he likes to see out of the bullpen. One thing that we definitely need to focus on is, as I mentioned yesterday, our bullpen closing out games, because our rotation resolved their issues, and that was longevity. That was going deep into ball games and holding their opponents to a close game heading into the seventh, eighth, and ninth. And this was even at the point where, look, the Reds dominated some bullpens this past season, but they've also have allowed some offense to get to our bullpens and really cost us some games. So I'd really like to see our bullpen clean up. Tony is right behind right up ahead with Keegan Thompson, Zach Maxwell. I threw in Graham Ashcraft and Connor Phillips. I got just a few free agencies. I'd like to at least see one or two be added to that. If my 9 guys running out there on the field, I have Jose Trevino as our everyday starter. And this is just based off of the roster I see now. And because I actually have Tyler Stevenson primarily as the designated hitter. You see, I can see Tyler Stevenson playing first base. I think it is a better protective, less enduring position to play that could keep him and keep his offensive at bats on the field. I don't know why the Reds haven't transitioned him yet. I know they tried some things, and don't get me wrong, Tyler Stevenson has also been injured quite often, and but when he is there, he is valued, and he needs to be in that lineup. I see you take a workload off of him defensively and just have him hit that bat. Yes, he could still catch. Sure, he could try to have some playing time at first base. I would like to see the Reds aggressively push, especially if they don't focus in on their first baseman this year. Push Tyler Stevenson out there heading into this year. At first base, I do have Spencer Steer. Now, I know Sal Stewart is coming up, and he's made some really minor league big deals, but I don't feel like we need to rush him to the majors. We've seen this happen with guys like Noelvi Marte, Christian Encarnacion Strand, Ellie Dela Cruz, Matt McLean. They don't all work out. And yes, Sal has really been impressive, especially offensively. I could see him making his MLB call up early on in the season, but I think we want to see how spring training really comes out and maybe get started into the least regular season. Let's not push them. Let us be one of those deals where we deal somebody and then bring them up. Spencer Steer is another guy possible, on that potential trade block. He's kind of been that utility guy from third to first, outfield, all around. Just is not able to remain consistent. Matt McLean is at second base. I've shared my opinions on this. I don't necessarily think that he's an everyday second baseman. I feel like he's a better utility guy coming off the bench. Because I can see him a lot in the outfield when we need guys with days off, or giving Ellie Dela Cruz or Key Brian Hayes days off. But right now, the best option for me is to place him down there at second base. I feel like we have a solid left field side of the field with Ellie Dela Cruz at short, Key Brian Hayes. Nothing's changing over there. Our biggest issues is getting to the outfield. And we have Gavin Lux in left field. We have TJ Friedel in center. and we have Will Benson. I have Will Benson in right. They put Noelvi Marte. I think Noelvi Marte has still has some room to improve. He's on my bench. So with Christian Encarnacion Strand, Sal Stewart, and then Tyler Callahan. I know it's not much to go off of, but that's what the Cincinnati Reds have available on their site. So we talked about possibly moving things around, and this is all based off a scenario basis. Um, I know, I like to see, I know I know yesterday's conversation was really big upon talking about a signing like a Pete Alonso. He's 31 years old. He's a right-handed batter. He batted 272 last year with 38 home runs. And it would be nice to find one or two of those guys that can really slide into that fourth, fifth, three, four, five spot in that lineup and really be dangerous. Uh, you know, Nothing wrong with Ellie De La Cruz. Nothing wrong with Tyler Stevenson. Nothing wrong with Spencer Steer, but they're not as aggressive and as powerful on a night in and night out basis as we've seen from Pete Alonso. I'm sorry, but go up against Pete Alonso 5, at least 6, 7 out of 10 times. I'm going to say, look, I mean, I'm probably going to be pitching him a little bit more carefully. But that is all in hindsight, right? If we could pick Pete Alonso, I'm not too worried about Tyler Stevenson right now, whether he makes a transition. Keep him at catcher and then utilize him, as a DH. The problem that I run into that is that you take away a defensive spot, especially at the catching position. And that was one of the conundrums we run into is whenever you have, unless you're planning on carrying 3 catchers, which I don't think you should, then you gotta be smart using Tyler Stevenson as a DH throughout the games if something was to happen to Jose Trevino or vice versa. So I feel like it's a lose-lose situation. This is why I encourage the Reds to get Tyler Stevenson out of the catching position over to first base and maybe bring in another catcher. With that in mind, I had guys like Victor Carantini, Gary Sanchez. Victor Carantini is probably one of my favorite catchers to go with. He's 32 years old. He is a switch hitter. He batted 259 at a 344 plate appearances last season. Like I said, it comes back to round 2 if you could get a deal with Pete Alonso, because Pete Alonso would come with the obligation of paying more money. Now, I mentioned the whole second baseman position, and there's 2 players that I do like. I like to find an everyday second baseman. It's not going to be Gavin Lux. And like I said, I don't think Matt McLean is an everyday second baseman. He's more of a utility guy coming off the bench. And I feel like he's more effective on a day-to-day utility operation. Coming in one of my selections is going to be Jorge Polanco. He's a switch hitter. He's 32 years old. He had 26 home runs, so he has some power, and he batted 265. If your option to less power, but you want more consistency at the plate, I'd go with right-handed batter Ahmed Rosario. He's only 30 years old, and he batted 276 and 181 at bats this past season. I feel like one of those 2, you can feel more comfortable being an everyday second baseman. And I would like to settle with one of those. Now, I'm not thinking about trying to find a replacement for Ke'Bryan Hayes or Ellie De La Cruz. We're solid on the left side. As long as they stay healthy, I feel like we're in a good position. But we're talking about someone who could bring in a bat. Now, I'm not option. Like, I don't want to bring back someone that we've already gotten rid of and that didn't really perform well. And I have so many scarred memories right now heading into when we bring up the conversation of a Eugenio Suarez or a Jesse Winker or some of these guys coming up from the bullpen. We have seen back when I remember when we got rid of Suarez. And it was just one of those default nonsense that man, he's not performing. He's a lackluster. It's inconsistency, offensive power, and I just say get rid of him. Well, guess what? We got rid of him, and now he kind of made a splash last year with Arizona. Last season, he's had 49 bombs. He only batted 228. He's a little older than I expect, than I really want for my cup of tea at 34, but he's honestly, on that borderline. The only reason I even consider bringing Suarez back would be a strictly DH position. We don't have a designated hitter that has any power spot, and he's another power guy in our lineup. Okay, so when we have a DH, you look at the positions that should be powerful. I'm thinking that we're not going to have third baseman as powerful, so first base should be powerful, right, left, catcher possibly now, and then we have a DH. Well, Suarez is a DH person, in my opinion. Maybe he gets utilized coming in, especially with 50 bombs last season. But I'm very optimistic about that. I feel our main focus point, just like every other year, is going to be our outfield. We said goodbye to Jake Fraley, and he signed with the Tampa Bay Rays this coming up season. So I wish him the absolute best. I know we don't want to talk about bringing up guys that have been on this organization before, but it's just can't go without showing that Austin Hayes was batting 226 with 15 home runs. Now, for me, that's not the greatest numbers if you're playing left or right field, but maybe a guy coming off the bench that has experience is already building chemistry with a lot of these guys on the Reds organization. So I am looking for guys with a better batting average, a little bit more powerful, right? Harrison Bader kind of pops to mind. 32 right-handed batter, batting 227, has 17 bombs. My reality is that we have Gavin Lux, and I don't know how certain I want him out there every day. We have Will Benson, who, when hot, he could be very well, and he's a left-handed bat. I mean, he's not going to go hit 30, 40 home runs, but all we need to do is try to create some sort of establishment where our three top guys out there is going to produce something. Harrison Bader, I'm sure, he's currently a center fielder, but I'm sure he could take on a right or left field side. And, I'm going to throw it out there. There's just not much out there right now in free agency to pick up. So when it comes down to, well, if we don't have, I think of, you had Austin Hayes, who had 15 home runs, Christopher Morel, who had 11, Harrison Bader, who had 17. Bader had 200, was batting 277. Morel batted 219. I even threw in Jesse Winker just for the hell of it. He batted 229. My left and right fielders need to be batting a little bit better. I just don't see a market out there for outfielders at the moment. So, but here's the thing. We go back around to where if we let's say we picked up a Pete Alonso and he's our everyday first baseman. Or let's say we picked up a Victor Carantini and we can move Tyler Stevenson to first base. I'd push Steer back out to right or left. Give him that ability. If we could get, Suarez for a DA spot, that kind of keeps Stevenson on there, and it keeps our bench open for opportunities. So there's some room, and I know we're not going to get all of these players, but 2 or 3 guys, like I said, really does a little bit more wonders than what we expect. Now, look, I understand that we have ourselves a solid rotation that's building. You could always improve. And one thing is, the question would ask is, how ready is Chase Burns able to make it to ready for that 5th slot or even that 4th slot in that rotation? In my opinion, I don't want to rush a Chase Burns. We have, Abbott going well. We have Green going well. So, but we could always benefit adding a veteran down there at the bottom of the rotation. So I've kind of pointed out three guys. Their ERA is a little bit under 5, but above, but about 3 or 4. First pitcher is Michael King, age 31. I was even thinking about maybe reuniting with the Michael Lorenzo, or like a Michael Lorenzen, whose ERA is 4.64. But then I was just, like I said, crazy ideas here. Why don't we go out with the 28-year-old Dustin May, right-handed pitcher? That ERA is 4.95. I know it's not really the greatest, but why not? If we don't make any starting pitching moves, I'm fine with it. But my concern would be injuries. If someone would get injured, how would that affect? All right. But then we looked into our bullpen. And like I said, I feel like that's still where our number one weak point is this season. Our bullpen, I brought up some guys, and there's some guys who have under 3 ERAs that I really like. That's at a good age. And I can only think it would imagine it helps out with who we already have. I'm not saying we need a closer, but I wouldn't mind a closer. And one guy that comes to mind, I know it's a long shot, is left-handed pitcher Drew Pomeranz. Yes, he's really up there in age, and he goes against what I'm asking for. But his ERA is 2.17. And I think he has a lot of consistency as a closing or a setup guy. Whenever you're dealing with the heart of a lineup with the 7, need a left-handed pitcher out there, I think Drew Pomeranz is your guy to go to in the 8th or in the 9th inning. And maybe even swap places. This is the time of baseball in this generation where we don't just have one pitcher designated to close games out regardless of what the roster looks like. So maybe as we try to see Tony Santillan, find his way as a closer, hopefully he can stay healthy. Drew Pomeranz can kind of fill right in there in the mix. I also like to see 30-year-old right-handed pitcher Michael Kopech, who has a 2.45 ERA, or left-handed pitcher Sean Newcomb, who's only 33 with a 2.373. My point is that we do need some moves in the bullpen. I know we have a limited budget. So ideally if we're going to get a Pete Alonso or a Suarez, we're probably putting on all of our chips on one player. I would like to get away with hopefully walking away with 2 players. This is why I'm like, what about a Victor Caratini? What about a Jorge Polanco or a Med Rosario? Yeah, these are mid guys. Maybe you get 2, maybe you get 3, depending how the deals go. But I still feel like it would be unjust if the Reds organization does absolutely nothing or sign names that we don't even know of heading into this upcoming season. So I encourage you guys to let me know down in the comments or head over to our community chat on our TNC Sports Talk YouTube page and let me know based off of that list who you guys like, if you like anyone, or if there's anyone that I didn't mention that you guys like. And I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. All right, so we have 3 coming up games on Thanksgiving, but injuries kind of take play. So here's what we're watching heading into tomorrow's games. The Green Bay Packers at the Detroit Lions. Carl Brooks, Lucas Van Nys, and Savion Williams were all DNPs for the second consecutive day on Tuesday. Did not practice. If you don't know what DNPs are, Javon Bullard, Edgerrin Cooper, Matthew Golden, Nate Hobbs, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Reeds, Zach Tom, Quay Walker, and Devontae Wicks were limited to second straight days. Kyseen Nixon got limited practice after not practicing all day Monday. A good sign of potentially available. None of Graham's Glasnow, Kirby Joseph, Khalif Raymond, and Brock Wright practice for the second consecutive day. Seems unlikely they'll play. Dan Campbell all but confirmed that Joseph at least will sit. The Lions had Terrion Arnold, Taylor Decker, Tate Ratledge, Penny Sewell, and Isaac Tesla, all limited to second day straight on Tuesday, but Brian Branch upgraded to full practice. The expression from Campbell was optimistic about Marcus Davenport, who could return. Earliest was yesterday. Injuries is prevailing. The Cowboys, Isaiah Pacheco, running back, is set to make a return. He's been a full participant so far this week. He's missed each of the last 3 games due to a knee injury. Noah Gray has a concussion. Did not miss practice on Tuesday or Monday. Neither did Trey Smith. Rashard Reese is dealing with an ankle injury. Xavier Worthy and Leo Chanel were upgraded to full practices on Tuesday. So, Isaiah Pacheco, Xavier Worthy, some key opponents. George Pickens returned to limited practice on Tuesday after sitting out with the knee and calf designation on Monday. Cavante Turpin was similar limited after being a DNP's for the first season for the first session of the week. The Bengals, Joe Burrow is set to make a long-time return. He's been out since week 3 due to a toe injury. T. Higgins already ruled out with a concussion. Trey Hendrickson will miss a 5th consecutive game. Lamar Jackson returns to practice Tuesday after being listed DNP on Monday, and keeping with the routine he's established over the last few weeks, where he does not partake in the first practice of the week, but returns for the second one. Safety Kyle Hamilton and wide receiver Rashad Bateman returns to limited practice. Justice Hill did not practice Tuesday. So look, dog days are down, and I will tell you, we are looking forward to a very busy, very impactful games coming up tomorrow. So that is all the time I have for this episode. I hope you guys enjoy your guys' Thanksgiving weekend. I will tell you this. I will be recording my, not predictions, but I will be doing a recording that will be published later this week, probably Friday, for the WWE's upcoming PLE Survivor Series in San Diego, California. Kind of just want to touch base and review those matches. And there's only 4 matches on that card. So we're going to have that conversation in another episode heading into the weekend. So I'm going to give you guys some extra content. But I hope you guys enjoy this, wherever you guys get your podcast from. I want to thank everyone for supporting my channel. If you guys want to comment and leave your opinions, possibly review on this show, I encourage you guys heading over to our TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. And in our community creations port, leave us whatever you want to say, good or bad, I don't care. I want to give a big shout out to Enlightened Studios, who released their theater production on YouTube called Dinner with a Few Sides of Drama earlier this week. Part of that team last minute helped with light and sound. Not tuning my horn here, but it was a really fun experience, and he always puts on great products out there. Nothing less but success. So want to share that success with him and give him a mention. And they'll be back at it again with Grassroots in February. So I can't wait for that. But that is all the time we have. Hopefully everyone enjoys their Thanksgiving. Hopefully everyone enjoys week 13 of football and another weekend of sports. And we will be back officially on Monday to let you know and get you guys all caught up with what everything that's happened. So thank you guys for tuning in to the TNC Sports Talk. You guys take care. Have a great Thanksgiving.